the whole Kavanaugh debacle is going to influence the vote in November, the midterm elections. So we have a little bit of information, not a lot. So thehill.com took a poll, and the question was, do you believe the media coverage of Kavanaugh was biased against him? Biased against Kavanaugh, 45%. Big number. Bias in favor of Kavanaugh, 20%. Neutral, 35%. I guess I could understand a neutral, but bias in favor of Kavanaugh, 20%? Hey. NPR poll, all right? This is about whether the upcoming midterm election is very important. Republicans say, 80% of Republicans say very important. That's up from 68% in July. So the Kavanaugh effect is influencing Republicans. Democrats, 82% important, pretty much a wash, all right? The same number for Republicans. And 78% said it was important in July. So that closes the enthusiasm gap from 10% in July to 2% right now, according to NPR, PBS NewsHour. Certainly not a conservative operation. There are 209 seats in the House currently firm or leaning in the Democratic column. If the Dems take all 209, they would only be 9 shy of the 218 majority needed in the House to take that body. So, cliffhanger. So I asked myself, look, find a smart guy who's going to come in and give us fact-based analysis on something that's very difficult to analyze, the upcoming election. So we came up with Bernard Whitman, who's in New York City right now. He's a former Clinton pollster, and I saw your boss last night, Bernard, and he's the president and CEO of Whitman Insight Strategies. Okay. So far, I see from the NPR poll, don't know whether it's a good poll or not, that the enthusiasm gap is closed between Republicans and Democrats about the midterm. Are you seeing that?
You know, I think, Bill, thank you, first of all, for having me on. I think that here's what the midterms are going to be all about, and I'll get to your point in 1 second. Donald Trump, I think we can all agree, has flouted, contravened, and gone against virtually every political maximum, protocol, precedent that we've seen. He's a completely unpredictable figure that has broken all the rules, and we saw that most notably in 2016 with his victory. I think one truism in politics, as you well know, is that the midterm elections are fundamentally a referendum on the party in power and the president. And this president, by virtue of virtually any poll you see, is deeply and widely unpopular. And as a pollster, I look at trends, I look at a lot of data, I look at a lot of numbers. I look across, for example, one poll that just came out that you haven't referenced yet, just came out, was a CNN poll. The number 41 strikes me square in the face. Why not 41 as in George H.W. Bush, who this president makes me long for, but the number 41% of people prefer a generic Republican to 54%ing
that's a CNN poll. But Bernard,
let me finish.
Hold on. Just I have to inject you. I'll let you. But the CNN poll, by its own admission, the methodology is skewed because they interview more Democrats than Republicans. They don't have to do that. They choose to.
It's self-identified. It's self-identified. But if you
they're not trying to fool you. You know that. But if you look at the Rasmussen dailies.
Which tends to run
50-50.
But if you track it over time, but 41% vote for the generic Republican, 41% approve of Donald Trump, 41% approve of Kavanaugh's nomination, 41 appears again and again and again. So I will give this president this. He's got a solid base of 41%. The majority disapprove of Kavanaugh, disapprove of the president, plan to vote for a Democrat. The real question will be, can the Democrats mobilize and turn out that 50-odd% to prevail in capturing the House? That will determine the fate of Congress. I think the fate of the Senate is much more unclear. I think,
but the wins, the wins. Look, we all know that the resistance, against Donald Trump, which started the day he was elected, is pervasive in the media. Media promotes the resistance, is sympathetic toward it. We all know that. But we are seeing, we are seeing now, after the Kavanaugh effect, that Republicans are much more energized to get out and vote than they were. All right? I think every poll that I've seen reflects that the Republican, I don't know whether enthusiasm is the right word, but the urgency, I think that's a better word, of Republicans is rising, okay? And is now, according to NPR PBS, pretty much tied with the urgency on the Democratic side. So that means who gets out the vote wins. Now, were you in advising Bill Clinton in his first term when he lost the midterms?
Second term.
Were you there?
After we were brought in by Dick Morris right after the fall of Congress. And if you look at 94, if you look at 2006, if you look at 2010, it's very instructive. Each one of those times, Clinton, Bush, and Obama, their approval ratings were about 40% plus or minus. So you have a president again with approval rating around 40%
and they all lost
each time they lost control of Congress.
Okay.
But I mean, to your point, Bill, in terms of the Republicans being more energized, that's true for a certain key demographic of Republicans, that being Republican. If you look at women, Donald Trump right now has a 30-point deficit in the congressional vote for women. 63% of women say they'll vote for a Democrat. 33% say they'll vote for a Republican. That is a 30-point gap. We've never seen that before. So if even part of those college-educated suburban women, ultimately who are Trump voters who then come over to the other side, we are going to see a massive blue wave and will likely retake the House. Whether it's enough to retake the Senate, I think is very much in doubt. Okay. But the other thing that we haven't talked about is the state houses. Right now, the Republicans control the vast majority of state houses. It looks like we could come to a draw. We could pick up 8 gubernatorial seats, which would split the country, 25 Democratic governors, 25 Republican governors. Why is this important? Because the governors determine the legislative districting that will be redrawn in 2020 after the 2020 census, and maybe we can finally end Republican gerrymandering, which could actually help. Look,
you're a partisan. You work for Democrats. When you say we, you're obviously reflecting your business.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to get across, and I think is going to be true, is that you have a very good economy, and the Republicans running for office are going to have to sell that. But they also have something to sell now they didn't have 3 weeks ago. And that is the utter disgust that most Americans feel about the Kavanaugh situation. Even the people who don't like Kavanaugh, it was revolting what happened and how it happened. And that's something that's very emotional, as you know. When voters get emotional, anything can happen. And that wasn't in play 3 weeks ago, Bernard. It wasn't. It now is. Now, whether they're going to remember a month from now, I don't know. It's impossible to say. But you do have an X factor, emotion on the part of all Americans that wasn't there 3 weeks ago. And that, I don't think, is being factored in.
Well, the other thing that's not being factored in, because it's impossible, the biggest X factor is Donald Trump. Because you'll recall, and it seems like a year ago, but 2 weeks ago, all we were talking about was Paul Manafort and how he was going to flip and turn on Donald Trump.
Right.
2 weeks later, all we're talking about is Brett Kavanaugh. In 2 weeks, who knows what we'll be talking about? And who knows the ability and the tendency for this president to inject himself into the conversation.
I do know one thing. I know one thing, and you don't know it, and the audience doesn't know it, but I know it, because we have very, very good contacts, is that the strategy on the part of the White House is not to engender controversy for a month. That's why you saw the Rod Rosenstein thing. You know,
that would be the October surprise.
Yeah.
If
Trump
they actually did not inject controversy.
Trump could have fired Rosenstein, and he could have fired Sessions. But he isn't going to do it, all right? Might do it after. So the White House strategy is we're going to have the president on the road 3-4 times a week. He's going to target the races that you mentioned for governor and for Senate and the House. He's going to these places. He's going to try to energize the base. Now, when he's at those places, of course, he's going to say not crazy stuff, but stuff that's going to get people jumping up and down on both sides. But I don't expect to see any White House movement to fire anybody or to do anything dramatically. I think that they feel that they won this Kavanaugh thing. The White House feels it won here, not just the confirmation, but they're winning the hearts and minds. Last word.
Well, I think that they have done a decent job of exciting the base in certain key states in North Dakota, in Indiana, in Missouri that may actually prevent the Democrats from retaking the Senate. But
Tennessee,
I think
too.
when you look at the House, Tennessee, I think, is still a toss-up. I think Bradenson can still pull it out. But at the end of the day, I think that the White House probably recognizes that the House will fall, and they're hoping that it energized enough Republicans in the heartland to stave off a fall of the Senate. But at the end of the day, you can't escape the fact that this president, broadly speaking, is fairly unpopular, and that spells doomy day for the Republicans in the midterms.
Okay. And I appreciate you helping us out, Bernard. I'm going to give you one tip. If you don't say at the end of the day, you'll make more money. Your whole firm will make more money.
I'm going to take that to the bank.
That's right. And you're not in this category, every moron on television says at the end of the day. Really helpful for us. And thank you for coming on, Bernard. We'll check back with you around election time. And it's very nice of you to help us out.